All right, everyone, get ready because today we're doing a deep dive into hiring.
Ooh, hiring.
It's something that pretty much everyone has experience with,
Yeah.
whether you've applied for jobs or had to hire people yourself.
Or just being curious, like, how do people actually get those jobs at those companies? It seems so cool.
Yeah, exactly. Like, how does that even work?
Right.
So we asked you guys to send in some research about how things are changing in the world of hiring and evaluating candidates.
And wow, did we get a lot of interesting stuff.
So much.
It seems like it's not just about resumes anymore.
Definitely not just about
I
resumes.
mean, it's becoming more about looking at the whole person.
Right, like understanding who they are.
Yeah, not just what's written on a piece of paper.
One article even called Resumes Relics.
Ouch. Kind of harsh.
Maybe a little harsh, but it makes you think.
Yeah, for sure. Because resumes, they can be kind of limited.
Right.
They're like a snapshot in time.
Yeah.
But they don't always tell you the whole story.
Like how good someone is at communicating or if they're a good problem solver.
Yeah, you can't really capture soft skills on a resume.
Or like how well they'd actually fit in at the company.
Yeah, cultural fit is so important,
And how do you even show that on a resume?
right?
Like how do you prove you can think on your feet or that you're a good team player?
That's tough.
So speaking of new ways to evaluate candidates,
Yeah.
you sent in some research about something called gamified assessments.
Yes, those are super cool.
What are they?
Well, basically, they're like games, but designed to test job skills.
Oh, okay.
So, for example, a company might use a simulation to see how a project manager handles a crazy deadline.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
So it's like putting them through a real life scenario.
Yeah, and you can see how they perform under pressure.
It's way more engaging than a traditional interview.
Definitely.
Like, tell me about a time you faced a challenge.
Oh, yeah, that question.
Everyone's heard that one.
So overused.
With gamified assessments, you actually see their skills in action.
You get to see them in action.
That's awesome.
And another approach that's gaining popularity is behavioral interviews.
Ah, yes. Those can be tricky.
They can be tough.
Because instead of asking about hypothetical situations,
Yeah,
they want you to share real examples from your past.
exactly. Like they want to know how you've actually behaved in real work situations.
So instead of asking, are you a good team player?
Right?
They might say, tell me about a time you had to work with a difficult colleague
Because then they can see how you handle conflict
and your communication style.
and if you can actually work well with others.
It's like a sneak peek into how you'd be on their team.
Exactly.
Your research also talked about the importance of portfolios and work samples.
Oh, yeah. Especially in fields like design or tech.
Right, because then you can see the actual quality of their work.
Exactly. You're not just relying on what they say they can do.
It's like show, don't tell.
I like that.
But then there's the whole cultural fit thing.
Yeah. How do you even measure that?
It seems so subjective.
It is, but there are tools and techniques. Yeah, some companies use personality assessments or interviews that focus on their specific values.
So it's not just about finding someone with the right skills.
No.
It's also about finding someone who will thrive in that specific company culture.
It's all connected.
Because someone might look great on paper,
Right.
but if their personality clashes with the company culture.
It's not going to work.
And speaking of things that might not work,
Oh, what's up?
a lot of the research you sent talked about AI.
Artificial intelligence?
Yeah, and its growing role in the hiring process.
Ooh, yeah. That's a big one.
AI analyzing video interviews, sorting through resumes at lightning speed.
It can be a little unnerving.
It's like, whoa, is this the future?
It is the future.
But it's also kind of scary.
I know, but it can be really helpful too.
Like how?
Well, AI can process huge amounts of data way faster than a human can.
Okay.
So instead of spending hours reading resumes,
Recruiters can use AI to quickly identify the best candidates.
exactly, it can save them so much time.
And it can also help eliminate some of the unconscious bias.
That's right, because AI can analyze data more objectively.
Which could lead to a more fair hiring process for everyone.
That's the goal.
But we also have to make sure these AI tools are being used responsibly.
Absolutely. Transparency and ethics are so important.
We need to understand how these algorithms work.
Yes, and what data they're using.
We don't want AI to just perpetuate existing inequalities.
Right.
Or create new forms of bias.
So be very careful about that.
It's like using GPS navigation.
Okay.
It can be helpful, but you wouldn't blindly follow it if it told you to drive off a cliff.
Good point.
You still need to use your own judgment.
Human oversight is essential.
And speaking of technology's impact on hiring, We can't forget about the digital footprint we all leave online.
Oh yeah, that's a whole other layer.
Your research mentioned how employers are now looking at candidates' online
It's
presence.
like a living, breathing resume.
Right, your LinkedIn profile, online portfolios, even social media.
It can all play a role.
It's like a constantly updating resume for the world to see.
In a way, yeah.
But it also raises questions about privacy.
For sure, like, what's fair game for employers to look at?
It's a tricky balance.
It is, but one thing's for sure,
What's that?
your digital footprint matters.
So whether you're actively looking for a job
Right.
or just building your professional presence online,
It's important to be mindful of the image you're projecting.
that's good advice.
It's all part of building your personal brand.
So we've covered a lot of ground here.
We have.
From ditching the traditional resume to AI's growing role and the impact of our digital footprint.
It's a whole new world out there.
It's clear that the world of hiring is changing.
Big time.
And while some of these changes might seem scary,
Yeah.
they also present opportunities for both job seekers and employers.
Opportunities to make the hiring process more fair and effective.
I completely agree, and this is a topic that deserves even more exploration.
Oh.
So we'll be back after a quick break to continue this fascinating deep dive into the future of hiring.
Sounds good. You know, one thing that really struck me from all this research you sent
Yeah.
is just how important cultural fit is becoming.
Totally. Like, it's not enough to just have the skills anymore.
Right. You have to be the right fit for the company.
Companies really want people who share their values.
Yeah. And who can actually thrive in their specific work environment.
Because when you have a team where everyone's on the same page,
Yeah.
it just works better.
It leads to better collaboration.
More creativity.
And people are just happier overall.
Exactly. So it's like you're putting together a puzzle.
Okay.
You need all the pieces to fit.
Right. You can't force a square peg into a round hole.
Exactly. And that's what it's like with cultural fit,
It's about finding those people who complement the team
who bring something unique, but also align with the overall culture.
and who can communicate well with the rest of the team.
So how do companies actually figure out this whole cultural fit thing?
Well, they have to start by really defining their values.
Okay.
What do they stand for?
Right.
And then they have to translate those values into behaviors.
So, like, what does collaboration actually look like in practice?
Exactly. And then they can incorporate those behaviors into their interview questions.
Or even into, like, assessments or tasks.
Right. Like if teamwork's important,
They might have candidates do a group project.
yeah. So you can see how they interact with others.
It's like giving them a little taste of the company culture.
Exactly like a test drive.
And it gives the candidates a chance to see if they like it, too.
Right. It's a two-way street.
Now, what about AI?
Hmm.
Do you think AI could play a role in assessing cultural fit?
It's definitely possible.
Like, could an algorithm analyze someone's personality
Yeah. Or their communication style.
and predict how well they'd fit in?
I mean, some AI tools are already being used to analyze video interviews.
No way.
Yeah, like they could look at things like a candidate's level of enthusiasm.
That's wild.
It's pretty futuristic.
But it also kind of makes you wonder about bias.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Like, how do we make sure these AI tools are fair?
That's a huge question.
We don't want them to discriminate against people.
Right. We need to make sure they're not making judgments based on things like accent or personality quirks.
Human oversight is key.
Absolutely. We
That's-
can't just let the algorithms decide.
It's like using GPS again.
Okay, I see where you're going with this.
It can be helpful, but you still need to use your own brain.
You have to be aware of your surroundings.
Right, and not just blindly follow the directions.
Common sense is still important.
So as we wrap up this part of our deep dive,
Okay.
what are some key takeaways about cultural fit?
I think the biggest thing is that it's becoming increasingly important.
Companies really care about it.
They want people who are not only skilled, but also aligned with their values.
So if you're a job seeker
Think about how you can showcase your personality
and you're valued,
during the hiring process.
and if you're an employer,
Make sure you're clearly defining your company culture,
and finding ways to assess for it.
because cultural fit can make or break a team.
Absolutely well said. Welcome back to the deep dive. We've been talking all about how much the world of hiring is changing.
It's a whole new ballgame.
So for anyone who's feeling a little lost out there, what's one piece of advice you would give to job seekers?
I'd say focus on building your personal brand.
Like, what does that even mean?
Well, it means figuring out what makes you unique.
Okay.
What are your strengths?
Yeah.
What are you passionate about? And how can you show those things to potential employers?
So it's not just about listing skills on a resume.
No, it's about telling a story about who you are.
And what you bring to the table.
Exactly. Think about creating a portfolio that showcases your work,
Ooh,
or
yeah.
writing blog posts or articles that show off your expertise,
That's a great idea.
or even just sharing your thoughts and ideas on social media.
It's like building a more complete picture of yourself online.
Yeah, a multi-dimensional you.
I like that. And what about for employers?
I'd say don't be afraid to experiment with your hiring process.
Like try new things
Yeah, ditch the old resume and cover letter routine.
and think outside the box.
Exactly. Could you incorporate a skills-based challenge into your interviews?
Ooh, that would be interesting.
Or maybe have candidates submit a short video introduction.
I like that it's more engaging for everyone involved.
And at the end of the day, hiring is about building relationships.
That's true.
It's about finding people who not only have the right skills, but also share your values.
And who are excited to be part of your team.
That's what it's all about.
Well, this deep dive has been incredibly insightful. I know I've learned a lot.
I'm glad to hear that.
And I hope our listeners feel the same way.
Me too.
It's clear that the future of hiring is full of exciting possibilities.
Yeah, we just have to be open to change
And willing to adapt.
and always remember that it's about people
Finding the right people for the right roles.
and creating a work environment where everyone can thrive.
Well said. That's a perfect note to end on. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the future of hiring. It's been a pleasure having you here.
It's been fun.
And to our listeners, thank you for tuning in. We'll see you next time for another deep dive into the topics that matter most.